Yo, what's poppin', everybody? Sorry for that little bit of delay. Hopefully everyone's having a wonderful time so far on this amazing Friday, or wherever it is in this world. Sorry about that. As you can see with this light here, that was over my face. So I was trying to make sure that it's all good. Typically, I don't record at this time. Even if I do, it's one of those things where everything was just kind of going all over the place. I don't know. It just seems like it's different this time of the year, right? With the way that the sun's beaming down on me. That being said, the Pokemon Online Global Championships, POG Championships, is going on this weekend. So for anyone who's like, yo, Zach, what the heck is a POG? Isn't that kind of like some kind of emote, POG champ, all that kind of stuff? POG, or again, the Pokemon Online Global Championships, is an unofficial Pokemon community ran event. So basically it's a group of predominant online tournament organizers that have come together since the pandemic started, because we don't have an unofficial Worlds. They're running it they're running it as Worlds, Pokemon Worlds. It's not the same as Worlds, it's close. There's a decent sponsor out of Atlas Collectibles that is sponsoring the majority of the event, or all of the event. So there's some cash prizing. Players are playing day one. They have to get a record of 7-3. There's two pods, one that starts at 5 o'clock in the morning Eastern, one that starts at 12 o'clock in the morning Eastern. Now, depending on where you are in the world, one of those is going to not sound like 5 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going to go with, if I was playing day one, I'm not playing day one. I'll get to that in 1 second. You get to play in the pod that makes sense for you. So maybe if you are located in Asia, the 5 o'clock pod is 5 p.m. at night for you, or 3 o'clock at night, and that sounds totally fine. Maybe the 5 o'clock pod, if you are in Europe, sounds like 11 o'clock in the morning for you, and that sounds totally fine. Play with whichever one you want and works better for your schedule. I mean, heck, I used to work night shifts as a baker, so I totally get it. Had I still been doing that, I would not be playing at the 5 o'clock in the morning pod. Now, luckily for me, or I guess it's really not luck, they did award me a day one bye, so I don't get to play day one, because I did win the Players' Cup 2. So that's really why they chose me for that. So it's pretty cool. I just get to sit out and watch and see what's going on. Also last year at POG, I had a day one invite as well, or a day one bye as well, because I was a top 4, top 5 ranked player globally or North America. Starting to get a little bit fuzzy in here, but that's okay. I'm happy to see everyone today. Yo, Ali plays Pokemon. Victini opinions. I think Victini is not well positioned right now. And I'm going to give you my personal choices. There's not been a lot of data available on our current formats. This format has existed for 8 days now on PTCGO, and a lot of players still have not collected all the cards that they need. So is there a world where Rayquaza is the best deck in formats? Yeah, I mean, I guess there is a world where Ray is just the best deck in formats. Is there a world where... How do I put it? Is there a world where maybe Suicune is under-tested, or Glaceon VMAX is under-tested? Yeah, I 100% think so. We have not had enough time to really test these new decks. And I think that's really where we're at, is no one's had enough time to play test the new decks. We know exactly why some of these decks are doing better than others. Decks like Shadow Rider are absolutely busted. They're absolutely cracked. And there's other things like Dark Toolbox that have just been underlooked a little bit, because we also had the recent Sabrina and Bryson card that came out. Yo, Griffin, what's good? That being said, I don't want to take away everyone's too much time. A lot of peeps were asking me, where's your top 10 decks? This is basically going to be in lieu of that. I'm also likely going to push my top 10 decks report until later on, because we're going to be jumping into post-rotation on this channel, I believe, after this weekend. Give me some time, because I'm trying to figure out exactly what's the best way to approach that, since there's no Sword and Shield on the ladder, but we'll get there. If you haven't already, give this video a like. It does help signal boost it to a lot of peeps. I mean, from the bottom of my heart, it does mean a lot to get those likes. Not that I'm trying to hunt for likes, or I don't really care about my acceptance at this point. I'm kind of past that. But it does help signal boost to a lot of people. Subscribing to the channel there too. You can just click subscribe. We're trying to get to 5,500, but more or less 7,500 is our next big stretch goal. We're trying to get there. That'd be amazing. It's been a long journey for this channel. I mean, a year, but it's we're trying to push the boundaries as much as we possibly can. If you haven't got a chance to check out objectivedeck.com, it'd be absolutely amazing if you could. Objectivedeck.com is one of my side projects that I've worked on for about a year now with my pal Mikey. They're a data scientist out of Seattle, so there's a lot of cool stuff going in there. You could definitely up your game by using it. Still working out some kinks on the website. It's been launched like for 2 days. So yeah, the lists are going to be posted in the pinned comments below after the stream, just so I don't spoil it for anyone. So going over to our PTCGO gameplay, I'm going to jump into our number 5 deck here. So this is where we're at for our number 5 deck. I need some water. My throat's been excessively dry today. Word. So when it comes down to things like Suicune, Ludicolo, I think that it's completely underhyped, if that makes sense. So you have the ability of fleet-footed. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon's in the active spot, you get to draw a card. Not really crazy, but it's Blizzard Rondo doing 20 plus 20 for each Pokemon in play. I think there's a lot of cool things that you can do with a Pokemon like this. And one of the first things that I like is Ludicolo, because you're able for 2 energies to do 220 max with Blizzard Rondo, and then you're able to go Enthusiastic Dance to bring that to 320, and maybe with Zigzagoon and with Scoop of Net, you're able to get the OHKO on most VMAX Pokemon that we have available. Ludicolo works with other techs in this deck, like you have the Hoopa. So if your opponent's playing a Shadow Rider deck, they could have, I don't know, let's say 3 Pokemon in play with abilities, or let's say 4 Pokemon in play with abilities. That's going to be 90 plus 100 from Ludicolo, 190 times 2. It really can add up a lot. Or I guess 3 Pokemon in play would be doing 340. Either way, the whole combination of Ludicolo plus insert attackers that are relevant, that hit for a lot of damage, is very good. I like that you could use things like Mewtwo, and then grab them on, like put something on top of your deck with Mewtwo, fleet-footed, grab it back. I think that could be very good. This deck works off of having kind of a Melanie and Raihan engine. So it works out pretty well there. There's cool techs like Echoing Horn, because you could get a Pokemon back from your opponent's discard pile and put it onto their bench. But overall, I think this deck is pretty simple. Where this deck falls is that it's unknown where it falls. I've seen this deck destroy Shadow Rider. I've seen this deck lose to Shadow Rider so hard it's not even funny. I think this is the type of deck that beats Luke Metal. I was very close to putting Luke Metal in my top 5. I don't think that it's a good idea for anyone playing Luke Metal at this tournament. I think it's an incredibly weak deck in this format, and you are looking to only beat Rapid Strike players. You no longer beat Shadow Rider. I don't know who needs to hear that. Luke Metal does not beat Shadow Rider. So, basically, we'll jump into that more in a second, because that's kind of my thoughts. Suicune is cool. I think that whether you're playing straight Suicune with Inteleon, or Suicune as a tech and Ice Rider, I think Suicune is likely underrated. It could be overrated going into POG, but it's unknownly rated, I guess is the best point. Like, we don't know where this card is at because we've had 8 days to play with it. And in this particular format, it seems well poised enough to be number 5 on my list. Don't play Luke Metal, amen. So we're going to go to Luke Metal. I'll go to my call list. This is very similar to the list that most players. I could also update my energies, by the way. I got some pretty amazing energies last night. I got a large amount of codes, and I was able to trade for some of the awesome new metal energies. Just as a side note on where I'm at. So, very happy with some of the bling energies that I have. If anyone's like, Zach, why don't you have the bling of the Cynthia, Caitlyn, Guzma, Hala, Malalana? Those cards rotate like in a week. So I don't think I'm going to necessarily play with those anymore. So I think it's one of those things where I'm taking a bit of a break from those kind of bling, just really going for the standard bling that's available. And I have everything except for Evolution or Evolving Skies. But yeah, no, I would not play Luke Metal. Sorry. I do not foresee myself playing Luke Metal. I think it's a very bad idea. The thing is, this card's very good against tag team Pokemon sometimes. It's not particularly good against Dark Toolbox. Because Dark Toolbox just has answers to go through every single one of your Pokemon very easily. Even if you play 2 copies of Big Parasol, you can't get through it. Even if you play 2-3 copies of Crystal Caves, it's not going to matter. Because I know a lot of people are going to ask me, and a lot of people are going to end up playing Luke Metal, and I'm going to be like, you want to know what? You either got extremely lucky, played against weaker players, or you didn't make it, and there's no way to put it at this point. It's just to the point, like, I played this deck to make Players Cup 2. I was second in North America with this deck, and I only was second in North America because my power went off a few times. I'm not trying to make any excuses, but that's exactly what happened. My power went off a few times. I lost a few pods in the top 8 at the end. I was on track to make it. And I think I ended up, like, 3rd global, but whatever. This does not get around Path to the Peak. Path to the Peak is played in popular decks. This deck really only beats Rapid Strike most of the time. So I think this is a really poor choice for anyone who's playing in the tournament. If it's the deck that you're the most comfortable with, go ahead and play it, but I cannot personally recommend this deck to you. That's the reason why it's not in our top 5. I will save it though, and I will cover the deck like in the future, or like Zom decks in the future. But we're going to jump into our 4th pick for POG. So very similar to our number 5 list, we have a water-based attacker, Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX. Now, there's basically 2 versions to play this deck. You either play Path to the Peak version or you do not. You either play Metacham V or you do not. There's a lot of ways that you could play this deck. This is my personal favorite way of playing it right now. But if I were seriously considering this one, I probably wouldn't be considering the 4th deck on my list. Probably, I'm very much like a 1, 2, or 3 player. I wouldn't be playing the number 6 deck, unless, of course, like, again, day 2 POG, there's probably only going to be about 100 players. Not sure. Don't know exactly if they've calculated how many players there should be. Depending on the amount of players or which decks I perceive to make it in, I'm going to pick a choice that I think is going to be good against the field, or a deck that I feel like that I could play very well. This is a deck that I feel like I could play very well. I played this deck flawlessly at the Players' Cup Invitational. Unfortunately, I lost and came 5th place. Henry Brand also came 5th place with this deck. I ran into Shadow Riders. This deck typically doesn't beat Shadow Riders. But this deck does beat Dark decks, and I think that that's very good. This deck also might struggle against Luke Metal, but I like that this deck's neutral enough that you could hold your own against most decks in the formats. You might be able to overpower a player who is playing a Metal deck, or you might be able to overpower a player who is playing a Shadow Rider deck and jump through it. Articuno really stopping things. I think that Shintaro Ito playing this at my late night series really improved the deck overall, but the whole goal is to choose between Rider the High King, Max Lance, and either 1-shot or 2-shot your opponent's Pokemon, while fishing whatever you want out with Drizzile, Inteleon, and then sniping with the quick shooting Inteleon. I think those are really the big deals here. Now, other than that, I mean, it's a pretty much plain Jane list. There's nothing, you're fishing out a scoop of nets to use another quick shooting or another shady dealings. Like, these are all things where maybe this deck needs 1 copy of Switch just to get around things. I've seen this deck lose to a random Allergic Explosion GX. Things like that, but overall the list is very well constructed. Suicune kind of is a middle attacker, so if you can't necessarily get an Ice Rider VMAX, ASAP, this Pokemon can attack for 2 energies and might be able to swing for 220 for the knockout, and 220 could really add up with Inteleon. So you could kind of spike a knockout there. So I think that deck's pretty cool. Moving on to our number 3 deck. Shadow Rider Inteleon 2/2 Bayonets. I don't think there's that much room there. I think this deck is the 3rd best deck to be playing. So, sorry. I think it's one of those things where Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is probably the best deck that we have in the game in a nutshell. But we also have to realize that we are dealing with a deck that only plays 1 copy of Dedenne GX, and it has a very limited line to get set up. With all these techs, the deck can become fragile at times, and I'll put it like this. This Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX won the Players' Cup 3. I think that was really appropriate. I don't think many players were expecting it to win the Players' Cup 4, but Alex Szymanski with Inteleon really brought the deck. Being the best player out of the entire pod, I really thought that Alex was going to take it. If there was a player to take it, I thought Alex would be the one. Alex ended up being the one to take it. Cool. When it came to the Players' Cup Invitational, Alex himself was not going to play this deck, but submitted it and did not have time to change it, was thinking about playing Delmai's VMAX. This deck against Shadow Rider in the finals, he was able to get past Azul, whatever, and then he played against another Shadow Rider and wasn't able to win. So he won the Players' Cup Invitational, did not win the side bonus boss. Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, those are best of 3 events. And I think it's really one of those things where POG is a best of 1 event. You have to go 7-3 to advance. So if something goes wrong in your game or not 100% correct, you cannot bounce back game 2 and game 3. This deck could probably win a game by itself in best of 3, and then one of the other 2 games is pretty good because of something's going to happen in those 2 games that's going to combine. I think in best of 1, it's probably too loose. So I don't think this deck is great in best of 1. That's my thought. There's an argument where best of 1 and best of 3 are the same, or timing wise it's better or whatever. I think particularly for this event, I would want to play something a little bit more aggressive, steal those wins. This deck would just lose to a random Luke Metal. This deck could lose to a Shadow Rider. This deck even has an unfavorable matchup against Dark Toolbox. These are reasons why you probably want to play 2 out of 3, just in case your opponent gets off a monstrous start. The whole Metagame package added into this deck, so you could either use a bunch of quick shootings and even a Gmax Rapid Flow, set something up with Metacham, snipe them, then you go into a Cobalion GX, you go Iron Rule GX on your opponent, then you can go ahead, snipe them some more, then you can go Metacham again because you've reset Yoga Loop, then you can go Gmax Rapid Flow. I think those are really the big things that you can be doing with a deck like this. Raihan adding a lot to it as well, just being able to get some of your energies back. I think this is a great deck overall. Probably a little bit better in our post-rotation format. But it's one of those things where we'll have to find out a little bit more about that. Maybe this deck will go ahead and win POG. I could be wrong. I don't think it's incredibly well positioned, but the deck's power puts it here alone. Jumping into our next deck, we have our second deck for POG. And this one's pretty interchangeable with the first place deck. This is Dark Toolbox. I think Dark Toolbox is absolutely amazing. Also, I got these new Dark Energies, and I'm really happy with them. Dark Toolbox works by using red and blue. It was a card that I literally remember picking up before going to Latin America Internationals, the year that Cosmic Eclipse came out. And I was like, oh, okay, this card's going to be really awesome. We're going to play it with a bunch of awesome GX decks. That was the last set that we ever had GX Pokemon, so it was really awkward to deal with sometimes. When it came to red and blue, overall, red and blue here works out to grabbing out Weavile GX. So we do play 3 copies in this list. I decided to cut out Silvally. Silvally isn't necessarily getting the cards drawn that we want. So I went for a 3/3 Weavile. A lot of the times that I lose is because I draw into a Weavile GX and just don't have it. I also opted not to play the new Galarian Moltres in this deck, just due to bench spacing issues. So the goal is you get the energies and evolve with Weavile GX. So you have 2 energies from the red and blue, attach them to the Weavile GX, attach an energy for your turn, that's 3, attach an energy with Dire Flame Wings, that's 4, and then you have a bunch of things to play around with, either Mewtwo that can copy all those, copy all the GX Pokemon, or you have Umbreon Darkrai GX, where you copy Dark Moon GX for 6 energies. You could use Black Lance, hit things. You could go ahead and go Greedy Crush on a GX Pokemon, read that as Dedenne GX. Anything that you knock out with Greedy Crush, Dark Pulse. You have a lot of options to be attacking with this deck, getting things out. You could also use the new Sabrina and Bryson card, grabbing all of those, pitching 5 cards from your hand, grabbing 3 different typed Pokemon. So you could even grab Sneasel, Dark Sneasel, and then you could go ahead and grab Dedenne GX. That's really the trifecta there. And then you grab 2 energies, really getting things set up for yourself to get off that gigantic turn 2, the turn 2 red and blue, all set up. And I don't know, this deck has a lot of cool things going on to it. It's incredibly difficult to play, but it's incredibly rewarding to play at the same time. This deck does pretty well. This deck destroys Luke Metal, should be able to beat Shadow Rider because you do have that weakness advantage against them. You should be able to beat Rapid Strike Urshifu because Dark Moon GX onto a Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, and then you go for Greedy Crush on their Jirachi GX or Dedenne GX or anything else like that. You can win that game very easily. Now, to anyone who's playing and has not and understands what's going on with the format, you'll understand why Shadow Rider is in first place. Shadow Rider is a deck that doesn't really lose anything. It didn't really gain anything much from Evolving Skies either. It gained Galarian Articuno, which I think is very good. Just being able to get down a couple extra energies. And that's where we're at. I mean, Shadow Rider has Underworld Door, so you could attach an energy, draw 2 cards. You do that for each of your Shadow Riders in play. And then you could kind of dispose of those energies, discharge them with Alchemy VMAX, where you can go Gmax Whisk 60 times the amount of energy to your Pokemon that you discard, and then you just pitch them away. I think this is better than Rayquaza VMAX. I think this deck is absolutely fantastic. You can get those energies back with Ordinary Rod. You can accelerate more energies in play. You can even play Path to the Peak on your opponents, and then get rid of it with Marshadow yourself. You have Gengar and Mimikyu GX to stop your opponent for a turn. So it's absolutely fantastic how much this deck can kind of just push the envelope with the game. We've seen Shadow Rider see a lot of success. Shadow Rider was able to win the Chill Series event this week pretty seamlessly. I saw how it even beat an Eternatus in the top 4. This deck is likely just the strongest deck that we have for the foreseeable future. If you're not playing a Dark type deck, I ask you, how are you going to beat this deck? Because even decks like the best single prize card deck that we have right now is Malamar. And Malamar gets absolutely destroyed by Astral Barrage. So choose 2 of your opponent's Pokemon and 5 damage counters on each of them. You can knock out their Inkays instantly and stop them before they even get a chance to evolve with Gengar and Mimikyu. Like, it's really one of those things where it's crazy. Yeah, so just reading Diego, we only play 1 copy of Galarian Articuno because it stays on your bench. You want to have bench space for your Shadow Rider Calyrex, even a Marshadow to unlift a path or an opposing path, or even going with a Dedenne GX. So you want to have enough space to deal with the cards that you have. Now, those are the 5 decks that I would recommend playing for this event. I couldn't really recommend too much else. But, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at when it comes to deck choice here. I love Shadow Rider with Espeon VMAX a bit more. It takes care of Shadow versus Shadow Reason. White Plate also going to hang out with Dark Toolbox. So, yeah, I thought about that Mile High Sports a while. I thought about that long and hard. My official stance on it is that Espeon VMAX is avoidable. So, let's say we're looking at this, and we're looking at Espeon VMAX, because not everyone knows what all the new cards do. Espeon VMAX is an out to... It's an out to not getting knocked out by Dark Moon GX, or just random cheese attacks like Yoga Loop. With Solar Revelation, you can attach energies to all your Pokemon. It makes it really worthwhile. I think that this is pretty cool overall. Now, Max Mindstorm does 60 for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. Gives you an option to attack against Dark Toolbox. If you get to that point, I totally agree with that. But if you're playing against a mirror match, they could honestly discard them with Alcremie before you even get to max Mindstorm, and then you're out of luck. That's literally one of the things that they just can do. So it's one of those things where that's where I'm at. Alcremie VMAX gives you a lot more control, and Adornment is a lot better of attack than having Solar Revelation. Solar Revelation is very good, but Espeon VMAX just isn't as great. Just reading a few more comments here. Any budget decks you would recommend? I'd recommend maybe Rapid Strike Malamar. I think that's a pretty good budget deck. But budget decks is really subjective to what your budget is. So I would recommend like looking at any deck on this channel and being like, can I afford this? By picking up the codes from like PoTown or PTCGO store or something. That's what I would recommend. I will be covering Shadow Rider Calyrex post-rotation. This video is about the POG Championships that's going on starting tomorrow. So if anyone needed a last-minute bit of advice, that's why I'm really here. Again, I'm not playing tomorrow, so take my advice for as you would. But I do have a lot of friends who are playing this event tomorrow. Do I think of Welder Mewtwo with Umbreon VMAX? I think it's fine. It's probably a top 10 deck, but it's probably like overall I don't think it can hold its own compared to the decks that I've shown. Think of it as a great backup plan for 2 card spots. So I think that Alcremie VMAX gives you a lot of outs against all dark type decks because it's weak to metal. So my thought process on that is that in order for me to take 2 spots, I can't play a 62 card deck. If I could play a 62 card deck or a 70 card deck, I would probably eventually include an Espeon VMAX into this deck. Because it's very much up there. It's just not up there with this perfect 60 that I've crafted. So, that being said, we're back here. That's what we got going on for our video today. People are asking, what about the Shadow Rider, or Umbreon and Single Strike Urshifu? I don't think so. I don't think it's as good as these other decks. It felt very good when I was playing it. But it's one of those things where it's just not tested enough. It's very much unknown in the metagame. Muldrus ADP, I don't think is as good as these other decks. If you're playing Dark, you should probably just be playing Dark Toolbox. That's kind of where I'm at. So, that being said, I hope that everyone enjoyed watching this video. I will be updating the comments, the pinned comment, that being said, with the deck list and some reference videos if I have access to them. So, I'll catch up with everyone later. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. Give this video a like if you haven't already. Subscribe if you haven't already. And let me know in the comments below what deck you are playing for POG, which deck's going to win POG. A little bit of a short video today, but really just wanted to make sure that everyone's prepared for POG. And I haven't been feeling the greatest over the past week. Not really like in a health thing, but more like in a overly tired mental health space. So I'm just going to really take some extra time for myself. So if I'm a little bit light on uploads, like 1 a day, that's where I'm at. So, that being said, I appreciate everyone watching this video. Have yourself a great one, and I'll catch up with all y'all soon.